OTR FM, part of the ION Radio Network.
IPMNation.com.
It's Super Tuesday. And you know, this time around, the Republican National Committee made sure that it was front-loaded so that they'd have their nominee sewn up nice and early in the process. Oops. It is March 1st, 2016, 11 p.m. in the Eastern Time Zone, and Matt Connarton Unleashed starts right now.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good evening, everybody. It's Matt Connarton Unleashed. We are live on this Tuesday evening, Super Tuesday. Super Tuesday 2016. Wow. So there's a lot to get to tonight, of course. Well, in a manner of speaking. I mean, in some ways it's a big day, and in some ways it's not, because fairly predictable. But at least for the Republican Party, I think the fun is only just beginning. For the Democrats, it's going to be a little dull from here to the convention, at least. But both outcomes pretty predictable. But with different a different set of repercussions on each side. So welcome to the show. We'll get into all that in just a moment. Of course, Matt Connarton Unleashed. We're live on IPM Nation 2, and of course it's Tuesday nights. We're also on OTR FM, the premium channel on the OMTimes radio network. So hello to all the listeners on OTR as well as IPM Nation. Of course, you can hear the show 5 nights a week at 11 p.m. Eastern on IPM Nation 2, and Tuesdays and Thursday nights we have the honor and privilege of being on OTR FM. Also, if you are listening live on Tuesday night, tomorrow, Wednesday, of course, that's a big day of television at IPM Nation. I will be on at 1 p.m. Eastern with John Hopwood on Ward 13 on his program. We're going to be talking with Peter White and Joel Elber, also known as the Moose. They're going to come on Ward 13 and talk about, I'm sure we'll talk some politics, but they're also going to talk about their new show, Peter White and the Moose, which will be beginning next week. Their new morning show from 7 to 9 p.m. in the Eastern Time Zone. And you can hear that on IPM Nation 3. And, of course, if you're local in the Manchester, New Hampshire area, you'll also be able to hear it on WMNH 95.3. But you can stream it online from anywhere in the world on IPM Nation 3, our third live station on IPM Nation, which we just added, and that begins on Monday, March 7th. But they're going to come on to Ward 13 tomorrow and talk about that. They're also then going to stick around for Matt Connarton Unleashed, the television edition, which is every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Peter and Joel are going to stick around for that, and John Hopwood is always welcome as well. And returning, I got a stacked show tomorrow, because also returning this week, Dr. Kevin. If you saw last week's show, Dr. Kevin was with me for that, and we did a little hypnosis session. For those who don't know, I'm also a certified hypnotherapist, and I did hypnotize Dr. Kevin live on the air, and this week he's going to return the favor and give me a psychic reading live on the air. We were going to do that last week, but didn't quite get to it because we just ran out of time. So we're going to do that this week. So I have a very full show tomorrow for the television edition of Unleashed, and of course, if you don't get to see it live at 2 p.m. Eastern, we do upload them up to YouTube and Vimeo, usually by about 9 p.m. Eastern, so you can see the show then. Also this week on Thursday, by the way, because it's the first Thursday of the month, I will be with Dr. Kevin for Thirst Quenching Thursday on his show, That is Thursday afternoon, or Thursday evening rather, at 6 p.m. Eastern on the Dr. Kevin Show. So it's a busy week. There's other stuff going on too, but I don't want to spend too much time with all the housekeeping, as it were, because again, today, Super Tuesday. Let's talk about briefly. We'll touch on what happened on the Democratic side, because not very interesting. I mean, look, for both parties, it was very predictable. I said all along it's going to be Trump and Hillary. I've said all along, frankly, that it's going to be Trump versus Hillary in the general election. And that, I think, became solidified today. For the Democrats, pretty predictable. Look, I mean, the Bernie Sanders thing, it was fun while it lasted. It was interesting. It was fun watching him make Hillary kind of sweat it out a little bit. But we knew, with the South Carolina primary, that we knew that was going to be Hillary's firewall. She would probably win there, and that would set her up nicely for Super Tuesday, and it did. Bernie won. He did win Vermont, and I'm doing this from memory. I don't have it in front of me, but I know he won Vermont, and apparently he won Oklahoma. Vermont, not a surprise. He is the senator from Vermont. Obviously, favorite son. But he did. He also picked up Oklahoma, but Hillary did very well otherwise. And look, it's a foregone conclusion. She's going to be the nominee. It will be interesting. The one thing that will be interesting will be to see how long Bernie Sanders hangs around. I wonder if he'll try to be to Hillary as Hillary was to Obama in 2008, where even when at a certain point it was obvious that Obama was going to be the Democratic nominee, Hillary did hang in there for a while and won some primaries along the way, even at the point where it was obvious she had no chance of catching up to Obama in the delegate count. She did hang in, and she picked up a few primary victories here and there. And Bernie may do the same, just as Jerry Brown did to Bill Clinton back in 1992. When it was obvious Bill Clinton was going to be the Democratic nominee, at that time former, and now he is once again governor of California, Jerry Brown, he hung around a long time and was kind of a thorn in Bill Clinton's side. And actually, toward the end, he managed to win a few primaries against Bill Clinton. So we'll see what happens from here in terms of Bernie Sanders. I think he's going to want to stick around a while, but we'll see. Now, on the Republican side, again, very predictable. We knew Trump was going to do well today, and he did. Ted Cruz apparently won Texas, his home state, and Oklahoma. I think Trump cleaned up everywhere else. I don't know if it's happened yet. I'm sure Marco Rubio at some point will declare that once again coming in third is some sort of victory for him. I say that only half kidding. I think Rubio's probably going to drop out after tonight. But look, it's, again, very predictable. It's I said all along it's going to be Trump. It's going to be Trump. And as I made the comment in the opening, the Reince Priebus and the Republican National Committee, they had made a conscious decision to they wanted Super Tuesday early this year because they wanted the nominee, the eventual nominee, to have the nomination sewn up fairly early. They felt like in 2012, Romney was hurt by Super Tuesday being later in the process. And, because by not being able to clinch the nomination as early, he had to go through these debates where there was a feeling among some that the debates actually, the primary debates actually kind of hurt Romney, and that he had taken so much damage that by the time he got to the nomination, he was damaged goods. Now that may or may not be the case. It's all theory, but so they really tried to kind of move things up this year, to make sure that the nominee would be would have it sewn up quick, and then but they weren't counting on Donald Trump. I am absolutely positive they are regretting very much using that strategy. It is blown up in their faces. The establishment, who doesn't want Trump to be the nominee, wow, did they botch this? Because this gave him an opportunity to sew it up early. There is no way at this point, And I know they're going to continue to cling to the idea, but there is no way that Trump can be stopped at this point. There's just no way. It's already over. We already have our nominees, which in a way sucks because it's much more fun it's more fun when things are unpredictable, but there's no way now. And it's fine for the Democrats. The Democratic establishment wanted Hillary. They saw Bernie as a bit of an interloper. I mean, Bernie's not even a Democrat, technically. He's an independent. So they're fine. They're happy. They got their establishment candidate. They'll all fall in line, and that's fine. But for the Republicans, this has been a wild ride, and it's just going to get wilder. What do they do now? I talked last night on the show about how Mitch McConnell has been telling Senate Republicans, feel free to run attack ads against Donald Trump, against your own party's nominee, just to try to save yourselves, because they're so worried that Trump is going to have a terrible down ballot effect on Republicans in Senate and House races and governor's races. It's going to get very interesting from here for the Republicans. So I don't know. I'm not sure what happens next, but I think they're all just going to have to, as I've been saying, they're going to have to embrace the horror of a Trump nomination. It is what it is, and they better get used to the idea pretty quick, because there's no stopping him now. We'll get into that a little bit more after the break. There's plenty more to come, so stick with me. It's Matt Connarton Unleashed, and we're live. I'll see you on the other side. Stick around.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Hi, this is Sylvia Henderson, intuitive life coach and energy healer. Are you ready to elevate and rise way above your normal? Be sure to listen to my show, Intuitive Transformations, on OMTimes Radio, Sunday evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern. Get the inspiration you need to transform your life.
Hi everyone, this is Shay Parker, the host of Best of the Best, which airs live right here on IOM Radio every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific. I'm super excited to bring you expert guest hosts, spiritual discussions, free psychic readings, and so much more. I can promise that you will not want to miss this one-of-a-kind, fun, yet touching, down-to-earth show. Join us every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific on OTR-FM. This is Shay Parker, and I can't wait to see you there.
Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
Welcome back, everybody. Matt Connarton Unleashed. We're live on this Super Tuesday evening. We're in the final hour of Super Tuesday here in the Eastern Time Zone. Also, March 1st, first day of spring. I know, it's not really the first day of spring, technically. We have a few weeks, but I tried to use my dad's philosophy on that. My dad always says that he tries to think of winter as really just being 2 months long, January and February. His logic being that, if you think about it, most of December is technically still fall. And you really don't get into the really tough weather winter-wise if you're in a part of the country that gets that until January anyway, usually. So then you just have January and February to contend with. Once you get to March, March can go either way. Some years March sucks every bit as much as February, and sometimes March gets pretty nice pretty quick. And so, even if psychologically, even if you wake up on a day in March and you have 2 feet of snow, it's like, you're in the home stretch. But so I've always I've adopted that, and I've always thought of March 1st as the first day of spring. Not that it matters much this year. Here in New Hampshire, where we broadcast from, we've had probably the easiest winter I can ever remember. It's been quite glorious. So it already feels like spring anyway. But we earned it, because last year we had probably the worst winter I can ever remember. So I like this extreme much better. And look, if you're in a part of the country that's still having winter, and don't kill the messenger. Okay, I'm sorry if you're still having winter where you are and it sucks. But like I said, here where we are, after what we went through last year, we earned this one. We earned a break. So we're discussing Trump and his inevitability. He's pretty much I think we can use the term at this point, presumptive nominee. That's a phrase you hear a lot. But here's the thing. So there is still talk of how the Republicans might be able to get the nomination away from him. And even tonight, coming home on the drive home from, I tape a show on Tuesday nights called Local Outbreak, which some of you might be familiar with. We run it on IPM Nation, and it also airs on 100.1 The Planet, the local FM station where I am. And coming back, it's like hearing these Republicans talking about on talk radio, talking about, well, it's not over yet. Trump's not the nominee yet. And there could be not a brokered convention, because Mara Liasson on NPR said, technically there is no such thing as a brokered convention because there are no brokers. The correct term is contested convention. There could be a contested convention. And that's how the Republicans would have to do it. It would be different. I kind of misunderstood this until recently. I thought both parties had super delegates, because I discussed on the show recently about how the Democrats, the reason that that Hillary was able to lose Iowa and New Hampshire, or a tie in Iowa, I guess, and still be so far ahead of Sanders in delegates, is because you have these super delegates who just can do whatever they want, and they basically signed on with Hillary. I thought the Republicans also had super delegates. Apparently not. It does work differently with the Republicans. They don't have super delegates in the same way the Democrats do. So that's, which I understand this more clearly now. That explains why, when looking at different scenarios in terms of how each respective party would figure out how to steal the nomination away from the the interloper, the outsider. In the case of the Democrats, they were going to do it through superdelegates, but in the case of the Republicans, their best shot, and of course for the Democrats, that problem has already resolved itself, but for the Republicans, they're going to have to do it through a contested convention. But they're completely screwed. And this is why, like I keep saying, they need to embrace the horror. They need to lean into it. Because what are they going to do? Don't get me wrong. I desperately want to see a contested convention. As a political junkie, I just think that would be fascinating. I think a lot of Republicans, even though it would be disastrous for their party, probably on some level, there's part of them that wants to see it happen anyway, only because it would just be so damn interesting. It really would be fascinating to see this play out, a contested convention. But they're screwed, because what if that were to actually happen and they were to get the nomination away from Trump? So what, you end up with a nominee that the overwhelming majority of voters in the primaries didn't vote for? That's one way to hand the election to Hillary Clinton. Here's another way to hand the election to Hillary Clinton. let's suppose they steal the nomination away from Trump through a contested convention, and then Trump says, well, screw you, I'm gonna run third party. Yeah, I signed your stupid pledge, but then you turned around and you stole the nomination from me, so I'm going to run as an independent now. That's another way to hand the election to Hillary Clinton. So there's nothing they can do. And I got to tell you, I know some of you listening might be thinking, well, maybe you don't think there's anything they can do, Matt, but you're not looking at it the right way or whatever. And I would just say this. I don't want to sound cocky about this, but I have to tell you one thing. So far, I've been pretty consistently correct with my predictions. I've said all along, despite the doubters, it was going to be Trump versus Hillary. And I think tonight we pretty much see that that's it. I know it's not a done deal technically, but it's going to be Trump versus Hillary. I mean, I said all along, all you Bernie Sanders supporters, and don't get me wrong, I get it. I understand why you like him. There's some things I like about him, but Hillary Clinton's going to win big in South Carolina, and then it's over for Bernie. And I was right. And I told you, all the doubters who didn't think Trump would win New Hampshire, who thought an establishment candidate would emerge, I was right about that too. Trump won New Hampshire, and then he's with a couple of exceptions, he's been winning ever since. So, I seem to have a pretty good nose for this. I'm telling you, establishment Republicans who don't want Trump, you have no options. So you got to make the best of this one. Mitch McConnell telling Republicans in the House and Senate it's okay to run attack ads against your own party's presumptive nominee. Crazy talk. That's just crazy to do that. You have to embrace the horror and lean into it. You have no options. So this is where we are. There's an article. We'll look at this quickly on HuffPost. How far might the GOP go to thwart Donald Trump at its convention? I'll read part of this and then we're going to hit another break. But it says here, in just about any election, your political observers hoping for something other than an anodyne set of political conventions that proceed from opening invocation to inevitable balloon drop along a well-strategized through line of political brand management will fantasize about a floor fight or a contested convention, as I put it. Typically, dreams of a contested or, if you must, brokered convention boil down to a raft of wishful thinking. And speaking of wishful thinking, how's that effort to stop Donald Trump from claiming the GOP nomination going? Yes, to borrow a tawdry cliche, this time it's different. As Trump has risen in the polls, the fears of the GOP establishment, which loathes the prospect of handing the keys to its kingdom over to an authoritarian glazed donut, have escalated. Trump has been the best of friends of the contested convention fantasists because of his knack for pushing traumatized Republican Party fixers out of their warrens and into the pages of newspapers. The only real question is, how far would GOP elites go to thwart a Trump nomination? Today, we'll consider the possibility that they'll issue a code black and blow up their own convention from the inside. At the New York Times, Trip Gabriel and the paper's Upshot team have paired a thorough walkthrough of the Republican Party's delegate selection system with a taut data visualization of what it would take for Marco Rubio, who is, at this point, arguably the one man who might thwart Trump outright in the primary contest yet to come. Suffice it to say, it's a daunting prospect for the Florida senator, one that requires multiple reverses in fortune and some downright implausible events to transpire. Per Gabriel, the Rubio campaign is hoping for several things in the coming weeks. That Mr. Cruz will withdraw after a poor finish on Super Tuesday, that Mr. Rubio will carry the moderate states of Minnesota and Virginia that day, and that on March 15th, the first day of voting in big winner-take-all states, Mr. Rubio will sweep the 99 delegates in his home state of Florida. To put it delicately, there's no aspect to this path to victory that's not part of some sort of bite down and pray situation. There's more to this. If you want to read the whole thing, because we're going to move on to other stuff after this break, but there's more to this on HuffPost. Again, the name of the article is "How Far Might the GOP Go to Thwart Donald Trump?" Jason Lincoln's wrote it, and it kind of goes through some possible scenarios, none of which, by the way, are at all realistic or plausible. So what we're going to do is we'll come back in about 2 minutes after the break, and let's look at I want to look a little more. I know it's might seem like old news, but David Duke continuing to have some effect on the campaign. And wow, Trump is going to have to find a way to pivot away from this stuff in a big way when he gets to the general election. I suppose he could already start to do it. Who knows? We might actually see Trump begin to pivot into being more the Donald Trump that we used to know before he just went totally off the rails and turned into the Donald Trump we see now that he's pretty much already, in my view, sewn up the nomination. But David Duke continues to praise Donald Trump, according to rightwingwatch.org. And, but remember, Trump did say, for anyone who's still worried about this, Trump did say, okay, I disavow him, okay? Remember that? I played that last night. Oh, boy. So when we come back, we'll look at that and a couple other things. We're only halfway done. We do have an open phone line if anyone would like to join us tonight. 617-917-4IPM. 617-917-4476 if you prefer. You can call or text us at that number. More Unleashed coming up. Don't go away.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network.
Come on down. You're the next listener of the Joe Show's second annual Salute to Game Shows, Price is Right Uncensored, a two-part series airing on Wednesday, March 9th and Wednesday, March the 16th. We will take you back all the way to September 4th, 1972, the first day Price is Right aired on CBS. The Joe Show speaks with longtime former producer Roger Dobkowitz, $1 Million Spectacular announcer Randy West, and longtime former Price is Right legendary host Bob Barker. So mark down Wednesday, March 9th and Wednesday, March 16th, 9 p.m. Eastern, OMTimes Radio on The Joe Show.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth radio is conscious living for your soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
IPMNation.com.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Matt Connarton Unleashed. We're live. If you're joining us midway, it is, of course, the waning hour of March 1st. If you're listening live, of course. I realize a lot of people listen later on demand. We do archive the shows on IPM Nation, and also, too, OMTimes has recently been putting the shows up on iTunes. You can get Matt Connarton Unleashed on iTunes, currently of OMTimes Radio. Of course, we're on IPM Nation 2 5 nights a week at 11 p.m. Eastern, and every Tuesday and Thursday night, we also have the honor and privilege of being on OTR FM, the premium channel on the OMTimes Radio Network. So hello again to all our listeners via that channel, so to speak, that website. And so I have some audio here. I don't know how much of this I can actually tolerate, but there's David Duke continuing to praise Donald Trump. And this is not the kind of this is probably not going to be helpful to Trump in the general election. I'm sure it helps him win some of those southern primaries. But probably I don't see this helping. I don't think David Duke is someone you want as an ally in the long run. But this is from rightwingwatch.org. Let's see what David Duke's been saying about Trump.
This is David Duke, and this program is a program dedicated to telling the truth, and I will never mince my words. I'll always say what I think, and one of the first things I want to talk about today is the fact that we must never engage in self-censorship. One of the great things about the Donald Trump campaign is its direct attack upon political correctness. By his example of what he's saying, even though all of us are going to find something in what he says once in a while that we're going to disagree with, at least he's saying it. And that's the message to the people. It's an anti-establishment message. And that's what's resonating with the people of the United States of America. And no matter what he says or what he does, because people know that he's just being straight out, it's literally encouraging people to begin to speak frankly and really honestly about some of the issues that we must talk about if we're going to survive as a nation, as a people, and if we're not going to have this world continue to tumble toward insanity, war, hatred, and destruction. And of course, as a European American, as a European person of European descent, with a feeling of closeness in relation to European people all over the world, we must understand that we are now in a struggle for the survival of European mankind. We must never mince our words about that. We are going down in numbers all over the world. Mass immigration is going to completely remake our countries, our politics, our values, our religious beliefs, everything in which we identify with, everything and every value we have. And the most critical issue facing the United States of America is whether or not we are going to remain an overwhelmingly European nation with the values of Western Christian civilization, or whether we're going to become some sort of third world nation, and whether or not we're going to continue to be robbed and exploited and oppressed by the ultimate ethnic supremacists, of course. We're talking about the Zionists and the Jewish tribal extremists. That doesn't mean every Jew. And I'm not attacking every Jewish person at all. And there are some Jews like Gilad Atzmon that actually speak against Jewish tribalism. But those are the rulers. It's obvious now to everybody. The top 7 super PACs of Hillary Clinton are all Jewish Zionists. And no wonder she's always supported these insane wars for Israel and the Middle East, orchestrated by neocons for the interest of Israel rather than America. We have the same thing going on with the Republican Party today. The only person who's kind of stepped out of that agenda has been Donald Trump. So let's talk about the weekend a little bit. As you know, I have been on the front pages of almost every major paper in the country along with Donald Trump. And Donald Trump has been attacked simply because I exercise my freedom of speech to my own listeners, my own program, and to the people that I speak and reach. And I reach many, many millions of people in America and all over the world because I said specifically, I made it very clear that I am not endorsing Donald Trump. But I do believe that it's the best thing we could do at this point for the important issues such as massive immigration, both in America, Europe, and the world. The most important thing we can do to make a statement against the international bankers like the Goldman Sachs of the world that are robbing us blind, and the Federal Reserve, which is robbing us blind, which is, again, a tribalist, completely controlled institution of.
Let me pause this here for a second. So I think I kind of figured out how David Duke managed to infiltrate the mainstream to the extent that he has over the. I mean, he's not really in the mainstream much, but he seems to pop in once in a while, like he did when he popped in on he was the Republican nominee in 1991 for governor of Louisiana. And he shows up. He shows up in the mainstream despite being a former grand wizard for the KKK and all that. But I'm listening to him, and this is probably in playing this sound clip, and I don't think I'm going to play any more of it. The whole thing is 5 minutes long in total. I think I've already given this cretin enough time, but I was curious just to see what he was saying in the aftermath of him saying that. And by the way, he says in that clip that he did not actually endorse Trump, but sounded like an endorsement to me. But in any case, I think I kind of get how he got as far as he did in terms of penetrating the mainstream. It's he does sprinkle in little things here and there that people who probably disagree with him in terms of his issues on race, or I don't even like the word race. I prefer to say ethnicity. People who probably disagree with him on so much of what he stands for can find little things that he says that you can agree with. And by appealing to a few things here and there where maybe you go, okay, well, he's right about that. See, that's how these people manage to infiltrate the mainstream. They find some way to relate to you by saying something that's hard to argue with, unrelated to their core value or lack thereof, which is hate and bigotry. But by finding other ways to sort of relate to you, they get you to listen. They get you to pay attention, even though the core of what they're trying to sell you is horse shit. I mean, he's, all this stuff about, white Europeans having to worry about, our cultures and societies being remade and turned into a third world country, which obviously is just code for, the Hispanic population in America is growing and isn't that scary. Personally, I couldn't care less. I've read data that suggests that by the year 2040, possibly even much sooner, but as early as one estimate I saw said that by the year 2040, white people will be the minority in this country. We'll have more Hispanics than whites. And, you'll hear that statistic trotted out by people like David Duke. He didn't mention it in this clip, but you'll hear that come up. And people hear that. Even people you wouldn't necessarily expect to necessarily have any concern about that. People will often hear that and go, "Oh, I didn't realize that. Wow. Well, that's a little," or they won't say it, but you'll see it in the way they react, that they're thinking, I'm not so sure I'm comfortable with that. That's a little disconcerting. Personally, I don't care at all. Okay, so in the year 2040, whites might be the minority. Really, who cares? The only level upon which I could possibly care about that would be thinking about how minorities have often been treated in the past. and not necessarily being excited about the prospect of being part of a minority that is treated that way. But that aside, who cares? Like, I just see people as people. These issues of, people talk about race. I always say, sometimes when people talk about race, I feel like I'm trapped in an episode of Star Trek where, you've got the human race, and you've got the Klingon race, and you've got the Vulcan race, and the Romulan race, all these races. There's no such thing as race. We're one race. We're the human race. We're all just people. So I don't understand this whole white paranoia. But he throws in things about, you notice in that clip, he threw in things about the Federal Reserve, which a lot of people have a concern about. He talked about, he referred to Hillary Clinton as being a neocon, which is something I've always said about Hillary Clinton, that she's basically a neoconservative on foreign policy and would have been very comfortable, I think, serving on the foreign policy team of the George W. Bush administration. So he kind of works some of that in there. That's something I can agree with him on. So that's what people like David Duke do. They're very clever about, because I do believe it's intentional, and I don't think he's stupid. I think he's evil, but evil often has some intelligence behind it, and that's how evil gets as far as it does. Otherwise, evil would fail every time, and sometimes evil doesn't fail. I think he knows what he's doing. I think it's intentional. I think it's by design. And by appealing to some of the concerns people have unrelated to issues of race, he's able to get your attention. So that's how a guy like David Duke operates. Doesn't change that he's a scumbag. All right, we got one more segment to go. More Unleashed coming up. Don't go away.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Do you want to be a better communicator? Do you want to better connect with the important people in your life? Do you want to enrich your relationships? If so, join me, Matthew Cooper, on the Positive Control System Show every Wednesday evening at 11 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time on OMTimes Radio. I'll meet you there.
Circle of Hearts Radio is a sanctuary on the airwaves. Join me, Grandmother Elia, in the circle on Sunday 2 p.m. Eastern as I share information to both enlighten and nourish your soul.
Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at OMTimes Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.omtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism. OMTimes Advisors, connecting you with the best advisors in the business.
My friends, welcome back. I have some stunning news. Well, we'll get to that in a moment. But before we wrap up, as we cruise into our final segment tonight, let's see. If you are listening live on Tuesday night, don't forget, tomorrow, Wednesday, I will be on Ward 13 with John Hopwood at 1 p.m. Eastern. You can see that over on IPM Nation. We'll be talking with, John and I will be talking with Joel Elber and Peter White of Amsterdam. Formerly of Amsterdam, or it will be formerly after this week. And I'll get back to that in a moment, but they're going to be talking about their new morning show, which is going to be debuting starting next week, March 7th. You'll be able to hear it on IPM Nation 3 mornings from 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. The Peter White and the Moose is the name of the show. So they're going to be talking about that. They're going to stick around for my show, Matt Connarton Unleashed, the television edition. We'll have a full house. Peter and Joel will be there. John is welcome to stick around, and Dr. Kevin will be returning again for the second week in a row to join me on that show as well. So that'll be a lot of fun. But Wednesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern time on IPM Nation, the final episode of Mansterdam with Peter White and Joel Elber. They're wrapping up their TV show so they can concentrate on their new morning show, which begins the following week. So it'll be a historic day tomorrow. The final Mansterdam tomorrow night. Can't believe it. So they were one of the original shows on IPM Nation when we were first building the network. So when we launched back in 2007. All right. This is stunning. So apparently, a lot of conservatives are really, really liking Trump and have got on board, despite his lack of religiosity. Although he tries to fake it, he has tried to fake it at some events, but Donald Trump not very convincing as a Christian. Well, apparently somebody's on to him. This is from rightwingwatch.org. There's this guy, Dave Dalbenmeyer, who thinks that Trump may actually be possessed by demons. Dun, dun, dun. Here, let's take a listen to this. This will be fun. I had no idea.
Why do they tell you the only two things you don't want to talk about are politics and religion? Because they should be interlocked, see. If we were all standing on the same foundation spiritually in Christianity, we wouldn't have the mess that we have politically. But again, our pastors, somebody help me here. Red glasses. How could any pastor in any pulpit, anywhere, think that male-on-male sex was a good thing?
Okay.
Simple, he's not a believer.
How could anybody ever think that's okay? How about this? How far are we from banging our daughters and it being okay? How far are we removed from that? Say, oh, that will never happen. Really? Well, why is it happening? Hey, JR, why is it happening? You have a slogan you use for that one, don't you?
As goes the church, so goes the nation.
As goes the church, so goes the nation.
Let me stop this just for a moment. This particular gentleman uses some unusually blunt language for someone coming at this stuff from his particular worldview. You don't expect to hear someone talking about guys banging their daughters, as he put it, from a Christian right-wing sort of evangelist type. Good for him. I'm enjoying his blunt talk. I assume he's not trying to appeal to Southern. Never mind. That's a bad joke. Okay, back to the audio. Let's get to the good stuff. The Trump.
And because they have divided us, and now are saying that the church is over here and the government's over here, now Christians are confused, and that's why we're going to get a guy like Trump. They like Trump because he speaks the truth.
Hang on a second. I just remembered something too. I think the real reason, I shouldn't spoil it. I didn't listen to this ahead of time, so maybe he addresses this in this clip. But I remember Trump at one point, people were making fun of him for saying that he was commenting on his own daughter, Ivanka, saying that, that if he weren't Ivanka's father, he would want to date her because she's so attractive. And some people thought that comment was a little creepy. I make no judgments. I'm just saying maybe that's why this thread in this gentleman's mind about, he's talking about incest and now he's talking about Trump. Anyway.
Only not the real truth. He speaks a secular truth that they like. And so what we are getting is a secular pope The president is a secular pope. And here is what is concerning those principalities and powers, which is, listen, Trump's lost. He may be demon possessed, but he's fighting other demons. There's a real authority struggle that's going on here in the heavenlies. I'm surprised Christians can't see what's going on.
All right. That was from rightwingwatch.org. What an interesting gentleman that is. That person is. Let's see. I want to get to one more thing before we run out of time. So something Jen mentioned to me before we went on the air tonight, and I pulled up the story. We do broadcast the show from Manchester, New Hampshire. And, of course, New Hampshire, first in the nation primary. So every 4 years, the rest of the country cares about us and then forgets us till the next 4 years. But but the Manchester Union leader, which is really, I should say New Hampshire Union leader, but it used to be called the Manchester Union leader. They very influential paper, because of our first in the nation primary status. And, people always, there's always this sort of debate over, or at least discussion about, do endorsements really matter? Do newspaper endorsements really matter, and so forth? And they typically seem to matter in the moment, but have a very short shelf life in terms of how relevant they are. But I've never seen anything quite like this happen. So Joseph W. McQuaid, editor of the New Hampshire Union Leader, they had, when it was time to endorse a Republican candidate, they endorsed New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. And they have retracted that endorsement. And I don't think I've ever seen this happen. Let me read this to you. This is, it says here, it's an editorial. Joseph W. McQuaid, publisher, says, Christie was our bad choice. And they're eating some crow here. Let me read this to you. It's short. Boy, were we wrong. We endorsed Chris Christie in the New Hampshire presidential primary. Despite his baggage, we thought that as a Republican governor in a Democratic leading state, he had the skills and experience the presidency needs and hasn't had of late. We also thought he had the best chance to take on and face down Donald Trump. Watching Christie kiss the Donald's ring this weekend and make excuses for the man Christie himself has said was unfit for the presidency demonstrated how wrong we were. Rather than standing up to the bully, Christie bent his knee. In doing so, he rejected the very principles of his campaign that attracted our support. Voters here apparently knew better than we. Most rejected Christie, but divided their votes among several others, leaving Trump to claim victory. And now, despite specifically telling us that he would never endorse him, Christie is backing Trump. If nothing else, that might wake up some Trump fans. We will look for that just as soon as we get the egg off our face. So there you go. I don't know that I've ever seen that. I mean, it's very possible that it's happened. It may happen on a regular basis. I don't know, but I don't think I've ever seen a newspaper retract an endorsement like that. And then this is according to thehill.com. It says here, Rand Paul pledges to unsuspend campaign if New Hampshire paper endorses him. And that would be interesting to see. I don't know if, if I've ever seen a paper, unendorse a candidate and then endorse a new candidate. But he did, in fact, tweet, if they endorse me and declare a do-over in New Hampshire, I will unsuspend. And then a happy face, and he wrote, happy hashtag Super Tuesday. Rand is known for whimsical tweets at times. He's not always serious with his tweets. So I doubt that he seriously expects the New Hampshire Union leader to suddenly endorse him. And I don't think he's going to unsuspend his campaign. By the way, there's another article on HuffPost. Ted Cruz doesn't want to anger Donald Trump's KKK fans because he wants their votes too. Says here, Dateline, Houston, Texas Senator Ted Cruz returned to his roots Monday night for a rally in the Chapel Auditorium of Houston Baptist University, where he was touted as a man of faith by his own pastor. After laudatory speeches from former Governor Rick Perry and current Governor Greg Abbott, the senator bore witness to his faith. Quote, "I know the meaning of God's grace through Jesus," unquote. And he recited a long list of reasons why Donald Trump should not be the Republican presidential nominee. Conspicuous by its absence was any mention of Trump's reluctance to distance himself from David Duke, a former Grand Wizard of the KKK. Not a word from the preacherly Cruz about the evils for the country and the GOP of white supremacists. Nothing about the Christian teachings urging you to love your fellow man. Cruz has mostly gone missing in this fight. There's a bunch more to this article, but let me just kind of sum it up here. It's an interesting observation that Howard Feynman is making in this column. It seems like that's an obvious thing. If you're competing with Trump for the nomination, that seems like an obvious thing to hit him on, right? That's what Marco Rubio's been hitting him on. But Ted Cruz won't do it, won't bring it up. Why not? Because Ted Cruz knows the same thing Trump knows. If you want to win those Southern primaries, don't disavow David Duke, or at least don't do it looking like you really want to do it. And it's dog whistle politics, and it worked for Ted Cruz today slightly. He was able to win Texas and Oklahoma. Don't disavow David Duke, and you can appeal to the rednecks. If you do disavow David Duke, you might drive them away. It's sick and it's sad, but that is the truth. And that's why that was missing from his speech. All right, we are out of time. Don't forget to check out this week's television edition of Unleashed. And, of course, I will be back Thursday night with another live show. And I'll also be on the Dr. Kevin Show this week, too. First Thursday of the month, our Thirst Quenching Thursday. So you can check that out Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern. All right, I'm out of time. Talk at y'all later. Good night, everybody.